Great to see you this Thursday, and thank you for logging on or tuning in for 10 minutes of current events. I'm Carl Azus. First up, an international increase in security. There are more visible police in airports across the U.S., train stations and tunnels, places where masses of people gather and travel. They're all in a state of heightened alert. In several cities around the world, even where officials say there are no specific threats at this time, more security forces are on guard following Wednesday's terrorist attacks in the Belgian capital of Brussels. 31 people were killed and 270 wounded when an airport and train station were targeted. ISIS said it was responsible. Belgian police say there were 4 attackers in all. 2 of them were brothers who died. One of the suicide bombers hasn't been identified yet, and another suspected terrorist is on the run after placing a bomb at the Brussels airport that did not go off. Police raids continue throughout Brussels, which is under its highest terror threat warning.
A soft target is a place where people are gathered, such as an airport, a train terminal, or even a stadium, where before they can get through screening, they're essentially unprotected. They are prime targets for terrorists. But what we've seen from Al-Qaeda and from ISIS is that they train to attack soft targets. They know that these are places where people are going to be gathering and where they're going to be unprotected. We saw that in the Paris attacks, where a couple of the suicide bombings happened outside of the Stade de France. In Brussels, we saw the airport and the metro station. One of the first things that authorities worry about after an event like Brussels is the possibility of copycat attacks. People who might just be thinking of doing something and then get inspired. So that's one of the reasons why you see an increased presence of police in places like Times Square, in places like Penn Station. You can only keep that increased presence for a few days. It's intended to make sure that you show an increased vigilance, but then the harder work begins behind the scenes. Wherever you put the security cordon, there is still going to be a line, and a line is always vulnerable. So the U.S. has a very robust system whereby they do sting operations to try to find these people who are online, who are talking about carrying out attacks. It's a very controversial tactic, but so far it has prevented a lot of attacks in the United States. In other countries, they're starting to copy that formula to try to do the same thing.
Next story today, a black box warning is the strongest one that the U.S. government gives on the labels of dangerous medications. And the Food and Drug Administration just decided to include a black box on commonly prescribed opioid painkillers. The warning itself mentions the risks of abuse, addiction, overdose, and death. It already exists on extended release painkillers. Now it'll appear on more commonly prescribed immediate release opioids as well. It's meant to further educate doctors as they prescribe these medications, and it's part of an effort to fight an increase in overdose deaths. Officials say prescription narcotics now kill more Americans every year than car accidents. Some critics say the FDA's move is too little too late, that abuse of these drugs has already killed too many people. Others say the new warning won't make much difference, or that it could make it harder for people with chronic pain to get the medications that help them manage it.
Before we can explore your brain on opiates, we need to understand a few things. An opiate is a chemical derived from opium and is the key ingredient in heroin. Those narcotics in your medicine cabinet, codeine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, they're opiate-like, but they are man-made and more commonly referred to as opioids. So how do these chemicals affect the brain? One big way is by exerting powerful pain relief to the rest of the body. Chemicals flood the system and latch onto millions of opiate receptors peppered throughout the body. Think of opiates and their receptors like puzzle pieces. When they bind together, pain signals are dulled, or they go away altogether. If the brain already has opiate receptors, doesn't that mean it can naturally provide pain relief? That's right. Feel-good chemicals like endorphins are natural opiates that dull pain and also give you a rush. The problem with man-made opiates that mimic endorphins, take too many and they can overwhelm the system, give you too much of a rush. That can lead to dependence or abuse. Addiction becomes an even bigger problem because opiates also slow down breathing and heart rate. Mix them with other things that slow down your body, and everything could grind to a halt. In fact, every 19 minutes, someone dies of an accidental prescription drug overdose. Most of the time, it involves an opiate. It's now more common than dying in a car crash. If you want to avoid that fate, don't take more than you're prescribed. Don't use other people's prescriptions. Never mix opiates with alcohol. And maybe try other ways of alleviating your pain, like over-the-counter pain relievers and good old-fashioned exercise.
One of the ways our show is used worldwide is to help students and adults practice their English, and we welcome everyone who does. That includes Lycée Françoise. It's in the community of Tournefeuille in southwest France. Stateside, we're stopping by Susan B. Anthony Middle School today. It's in one of Minnesota's twin cities. The Panthers are prowling around Minneapolis. And we've got some more big cats watching. The Cougars of Albuquerque, New Mexico. They're at Kennedy Middle School. Up next, what's likely the largest flying aircraft on the planet. Now, when we say that, you might think this, the Hughes H-4, aka the Spruce Goose. It has the longest wingspan, but well before its maiden and only flight in 1947, people flew on airships, and that was risky. The lighter-than-air hydrogen that gave them lift was highly flammable, and after the R-101 airship disaster in 1930 killed 48 people, and the Hindenburg explosion in 1937 killed 36, safety concerns have haunted these aircraft. Today, though, helium has replaced hydrogen, and carbon fiber, Kevlar, and Mylar have replaced cotton fabric. This ship doesn't have the speed or the cargo capacity of, say, a Boeing 737. But it can land where passenger jets wouldn't dare to try, and it could signal the rebirth of the airship.
We see Airlander as the future of air travel. It's going to be cheaper, it's going to be greener, we're going to be able to go from places that you can't go to and from now. It's going to be a whole revolution in how we use air transport. Airlander 10 is a hybrid vehicle. It's a mixture of a vehicle with helium lift and vectored thrust and aerodynamic lift. So a new type of aircraft. It's a 10-ton lift vehicle and is 300 feet long.
It's really quite a special machine to fly. The view, as you can see from the flight deck here, is excellent because large windows. It's very special because it really has an endurance capability that nothing else has at the moment. The vehicle has 12 tons capacity of fuel, which allows it to fly up to 5 days. It doesn't need any prepared surface for operating. We can land on almost any flat surface, whether it's water, grass, sand. It can land with no infrastructure at all.
Whether it's doing a safari, whether it's, say, sightseeing in places, whether it's doing surveillance work, a whole range of uses we're going to demonstrate with this vehicle.
Okay, the headline sounds awesome. Massive exploding star caught on camera. The video looks awesome-er. A massive exploding star caught on camera. But this, sorry to say, is just a cartoon animation. The actual footage, maybe not as awesome. Yep, here you go. An optical wavelength measurement provided by the Kepler telescope that indicates what scientists say is the explosive death of a star hundreds of millions of light years away that began with a 20-minute shock breakout and progressively got brighter over a period of 2 weeks. But if you want to talk about a massive supernova going out in a blaze of glory, the cartoon is a better place to star. Starring down startling discoveries is an astarnation, a star-entific Death Star nation that's always on Stargate. Will scientists one day capture actual video like that? Never say nova. I'm Star Lazeus, and CNN Stardent News stars again tomorrow.